Richard Runyon.
Here.
William Fox.
Here.
Joan Usman.
Here.
Cool.
Okay. Tom's got a couple of announcements for us before we start.
Okay. Mr. Gerald Aaron, a member of the ZBA, has reluctantly decided to recuse himself from further participation in these proceedings upon advice of counsel. He was appointed to the board, the ZBA, on May 11, 2017 by the County Board Chairman with the advice and consent of the board, effective as of May 18, 2017. The text amendment, which is the basis of this action, was filed on April 17, 2017. Prior to that time, Mr. Aaron had entered into a contract originally with K4, and later that company was assumed or acquired by another company called Vision Energy in 2012, where they signed up 120 acres of his ground. That contract expired on June 30th, 2017, which was after this proceeding began, and because this contract was still in effect when these proceedings began, it gave a situation, I'm not sure it's a conflict or not, but it is one of those situations where there's perhaps the appearance of a conflict or an appearance of impropriety. And upon careful reflection, he decided that he would step away from this case. He will still be involved in other cases, obviously. And it is my opinion that there is no prejudice or detriment. There have been no deliberations, rulings, findings, or whatever that have happened in this case, and we can go forward with the existing board members.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. So with that, we had finished, I think, I've had some testimony that I was aware of at that point in time, but I'm going to open it up for any last folks that want to present testimony or make public comment here. So one last call for anyone that's interested in providing testimony. Now's the time if you're interested to speak up.
Can I have public comment?
Sure, come on up though. We'll still swear you in just in case there's evidence. You want to sit by shot? What's next to the mic? Okay, do you prefer to be sworn or affirmed, John?
Sworn, all right.
Okay. Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this case now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Could you state your name and address for the record?
John J. Vistum, 24313 East 1800 North Road, Pontiac, Illinois.
Okay. And for everyone in the room, I may not know this, John used to be a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals until earlier this year, so that's out on the table. So go ahead, is there anything you want to state, John?
I guess the only thing I would like to make comment on is that there's not been one windmill person here yet at these hearings. There's not been one authority from the windmill here. There's not been anywhere in that district that says they weren't able to get a contract because of the setback. And you know, if that's a problem, why weren't them people here? I guess is what my question is, or my comment. The only people we've heard from is the people that are worried about their property, and the only other people we've heard from are the taxing bodies that are looking at the money that they might not get if the windmills aren't built, or a different number of them are. And there is testimony in the prior records of some hearings where a windmill expert voiced that the setback did not prevent a wind farm, but it made it more difficult to build, but did not prevent it. And the comment was made, it's a less populated area, so to me that setback should still work in that less populated area. And to me, we haven't heard no testimony otherwise. And I just wanted to bring that out. That's all I had.
Okay. All right. Any questions from zoning board members for John? All right. Any questions from units of local government or schools? interested parties represented by an attorney? Interested parties not represented by an attorney? County? Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else wish to speak tonight? Last chance. All right. Well, with that, we'll close the testimony and evidence section. But ZBA members, if we have questions for anyone, and hopefully they're here, if you have questions for any of the parties that have presented evidence, now's our time to ask those questions. I've got a few, if you have any. This is our last chance before we're gonna.
Are we having closing comments by everybody to do?
You need to take care of the questions from the ZBA first,
Before.
and then have closing, and then closings, and then close the hearing. That's the
And we
sequence.
can't ask questions after a closing statement?
No.
After we close the hearing, after closing statements, we close the hearing.
I understand that, but what happens if someone gives a closing statement that's kind of different than what we heard prior testimony?
No
Can
one
we
should
question-
do that.
Huh?
No one should do that.
If they do, you can take that into consideration, it's part of what you do. But now is sort of like the last chance for ZBA board members to ask any questions that they may have.
Because at the point we start deliberating, then we don't act,
Right.
no one makes comment at that point in time.
Right.
So if we've got questions, really now is the time to ask them. The few that I've got, I'm gonna direct them to you, Mr. Bradley Schaefer, and then you can ask Chuck or whoever you
Sure.
want to have as I answer them. And John just raised a pretty interesting point. We haven't heard from anyone that you cannot put a wind farm in with the setbacks that as it's currently written in the ordinance. I don't remember if Chuck provided that testimony or not, but would you want to bring someone in that would testify to that and talk about that? Has anyone really looked into that and to see if it's truly impossible with the setbacks and the waiver possibility, if it truly is impossible to put in a wind farm?
Well, certainly, and I'll defer to Darrell and the committee. I witnessed 2 meetings of the Agricultural Zoning and Emergency Services Committee. And over the scope of those 2 meetings in March of this year, they spent a good 2+ hours in one meeting that I personally witnessed going through and deliberating. I don't recall if any of you were present as well, but they spent a lot of time trying to figure out what would be possible, not possible, and out of that, really, in essence, adopted, revisited and approved of just about everything you had with some minor changes. If you want to offer anything else, as you can, but that's really what it boils down to.
So you revisited and approved the charter?
They spent 2+, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I'm just confused on what they revisited
And what they approved.
and what they approved.
Sure. So what you have is the version that you, in essence, drafted and then went through, right? And then the application process began anew, and that was as a result of the Agricultural Zoning and Emergency Services Committee discussing the changes that are part of that application.
Okay. Did wind farm representatives come into those committee meetings?
The ones I witnessed, no.
Did anybody from the county poll the citizens in the 7 townships to find out, who's willing to waive, who isn't willing to waive?
I don't know the answer to that.
So we don't know.
I don't know
Essentially,
personally.
We don't know. So I'm trying to get my head around too, what's the driving force behind this new application?
You have elected officials that, as part of their obligation, is to try to as part of an evolving process that has started years before I was even involved, to culminate with an ordinance that they feel was in the best interest of the county, and that includes the changes you see in the application.
So is it the productivity of the land? Is it the referendum results? Is it, I wanna write an ordinance that's gonna last longer than 6 months. I don't wanna see this come back and be revisited with the committee and with the zoning board and with all the people that look at this stuff. So that's where I'm trying to figure out, if we just say it's these 7 townships that we're gonna change the setback for, why?
Well, and again, I don't know how many of you were present during deliberations of the committee, but they really, and if you want to take judicial notice of the March 28th meeting minutes, you can do that. But what I would say is that deliberative process of a legislative body between all the committee members felt that these changes on that application were in the best interest of the county.
So, okay, then, I know the referendum results play a part in the decision to name those 7 townships and not name other townships as well. Is that the #1 factor?
I'm not on the committee. I don't recall anyone in the committee meeting saying that was the #1 factor.
Okay. So the productivity, the soil types, when were those started to be researched, reviewed, or analyzed?
I did not personally attend every agricultural zoning and emergency services committee meeting that may have culminated into the application. The 2 I witnessed, there were a myriad of issues as to why, and including a page by page, line by line analysis, and again, a majority of which said the version that this body created, a lot of it was good. There were just some things that they wanted to change.
Right. Did anything change with the soil types since last year?
I don't have any personal knowledge.
Does anyone on that testify?
What's the question?
Have the soil types changed? We looked at this, like, started this, I don't even remember, a year ago.
Soil survey document you have is many years old, and it hasn't changed from year to year. That's your question.
So, those soil types were the soil types when we started it the first time around. They're the same they are today. What made us look at that, is it, you know, it's been discussed quite a bit. Is it, you know, which exact soil types is it? Do we, instead of, would a better ordinance say, townships that have X and X for soil types, then are eligible or should be part of a smaller setback because they have these types of this soil type and it's not as productive? Or is it, I guess what I don't want to, what I would hate to see happen is we change it for 7 townships and we say it's based on that their soil types aren't as productive. Well, guess what, maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe all the other townships in our county have that same soil type as a percentage of the dirt in their area. So now, do we go back and does that justify changing the ordinance again and looking at it again?
You're asking me, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand the question.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking about creating changes based on soil type? You want to know what my thoughts are on that?
Is that one of the driving forces? Is that the main reason? I mean, I keep hearing, or I've heard multiple times in testimony, that the soil types in that area of the county are less productive. Therefore, there's the, you know, they need more economic, I guess, opportunities, and wind turbines are one.
Well, we certainly stand by the evidence presented, and part of that does include the analysis related to those soil and the productivity.
So which soil types is it that are not productive?
Well, I don't have the scientific knowledge for that. We stand by the evidence presented.
So you don't know which soil types aren't productive?
Well, I'm also not a member of the Agricultural and Zoning Committee. I'm here as counsel, and clearly, as legal counsel, I don't have scientific knowledge on soil.
And you can ask, I mean, have anyone answer the question that has that knowledge. I mean, that's what's been, not at this time.
You said anybody.
Well, for the county,
Okay.
Mr. Rudley Schaefer, you know, someone that presented a testimony on the soil types.
Mr. Rutland Shaker, I
So-
don't know, as a consultant right now.
Okay.
Whoever, I don't remember if it was Chuck or Darrell. I think it was Chuck.
I believe it
If
was
you want-
Chuck.
If you wanted to question to Chuck, I'm not trying to pick on you, I'm
No, it's
trying to
fine.
get to
I mean,
a
if-
logical way to write this ordinance so that we're not rewriting it again in 3, 6, 9, 12 months.
Well, and certainly respect what you're trying to get at, but again, with Chuck, if there's any particular testimony he wants to offer, in addition to what he has already provided, you know, I certainly defer to him, but if he wants to stand on what he's offered, I can't force him to have more testimony.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add, Chuck?
I'm just gonna reiterate, I mean, you had the soil survey of Louisa County, and it gave you the types of soils that are in through that area. I understand your question as far as how the soil, and I just looked at the general soil types. I understand your point of view that it be found in different areas of the county. I think it's a factor that, if you want, you know, it's scales, you're looking at the poorer soils, and the lighter shaded was the Bryce Swigert ones, so we'll start there.
Which page are you on? Did you pull
It's
out? What's the
County
number?
Exhibit 7, County Exhibit 7. So I just, you know, this is just reflecting that in that particular area, you have a, it's kind of area percentages. If you can look at that directly, it's kind of the percentages of the soils, you know, within entire areas. Yeah, you can find different soils in different areas, but it's higher percentages in regards to that. So I guess I'll stand by this, and then it gives you the general ideas as to the soils in that particular area as far as those issues go. And I think it's a combination of all the factors mentioned instead of just kind of pointing to one factor. I think it's all the factors mentioned as a totality as opposed to just one.
By all the factors, you're meaning soil type, the Hughie Ridge
Ridge
wind area or whatever it is,
density,
wind density,
rural density of population.
rural density of the population, as well as the referendum itself.
Vicinity of the other wind farms, that was an exhibit 2.
So then the soil types up in Reading Township, if we decided to exclude from this amendment, I just see the Pat and Parco Association, how does that compare? What does that, you list in your bullet points and the report that we were given, talks about moderate permeability of these poor drained soils. What do you know about the soil type up in Reading Township? Why would we exclude them if they want it and it's, if the referendum results that said in Reading Township, they support a shoulder setback? But what about their soil type?
As you go down the list on the last page of the document, the soil budget. I think you're finding the higher quality soils towards the bottom of the page. So that's where you have the Patton, Hero, and you have the Whitaker, Tuscola, Starks associations that are in there. I think that's where you're looking at some of them being some higher quality soils that go down through there. And I didn't realize we we're going to go into a lot of questions on soils, but I think some of those soils are some of the best in the state of Illinois.
Up and running.
They're more productive, some of those are more productive soils.
Is there any indication that we should read this chart top to bottom versus bottom to top? Is better to worse? I mean, I feel like a very level is better for farm than a nearly level.
It depends.
Come from the top.
At the top, I mean, if you want to look at the permeability issue, at the top, they're starting to slowly permeable soils. When they go through the moderate ones as they come down, so you see a difference in the permeability as they go down.
So having said that, which is the best soil indicated in this chart?
Say the bottom, just the bottom two categories, the bottom five, the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, for different reasons, but those would be some of the better. So,
So my last issue, I guess, I'm having a hard time getting my head around. I thought that the last time we looked at this ordinance and we reviewed it, we really found a happy medium for the folks that want wind turbines and the folks that don't want wind turbines, by creating a bigger setback and keeping them wavered. And the driving force behind that decision was based on health reasons and the evidence presented with Dr. Schomer's studies. There's been nothing presented to refute any of that. So how do we go, how does the zoning board justify, economic benefits have always been the driving force behind wanting wind turbines in Livingston County, wanting the development here. That was always, in my mind, that's not new. That's not, it didn't change from last year, from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago. We have more information now on health impacts and trying to reduce the potential for health impacts. And I think we thought we did that. If nothing's been presented to refute it, how do we justify changing what we came up with last time? What makes those people in that area of the county less worthy or less potentially needing protection? Does anyone know? And the health conditions of the folks that live there?
Is that posed to me?
Yeah.
Again, we have a legislative body here, we have one that's the Agricultural and Zoning Committee. I don't know how many of your members were present. There are minutes available from that meeting. At that meeting, they discussed many issues. Off the top of my head, I can't recall them all. But as a legislative body, it made a determination for what they felt were in the best interest of the county as a whole. Yes, there are differences in the application for various areas, but the evidence presented is the county's evidence in terms of, you know, what's in front of you for your decision.
So you don't know? I guess I'm asking, and you have an opportunity then, if you want to present additional, if you want to bring the minutes in, you can. I mean, that's the kind of information that the zoning board members need. That's what we always hope is going to come before us, so that we can make a good decision on, you know, based on good reasoning.
Certainly.
And that's what we tried to do last time, so if our good reasoning from last time hasn't been refuted, what's our basis this time?
Well, again, I'm not here to comment on what you all feel is good reasoning. I'm here to tell you what I witnessed. I witnessed that zoning board meeting, or that zoning committee meeting, and I witnessed a board go line by line through things that they felt was a better series of protections and accommodations for the county. Mr. Holt can refute what I'm saying if he wants, but that was what that body chose to do, and that was what led to the county board's application.
So you don't know if there's any less, if the folks in that area of the county could be any less impacted in a health perspective?
I don't personally know.
Joan, I have a question. I have not spoke. I have not testified here. I am a member of the Ag and Zoning Committee. Can I speak now, or since I did not testify, I can't talk? Tom, can you help me here?
Well, technically, you're represented by an attorney, okay, who speaks for you.
I have no problem deferring. I believe.
But I don't want to cause any.
Well, I wish you would have presented testimony, like Mr. Schlegel did, and spoken out before we stopped.
That's fine, and if you don't want me to, here, I won't. I'm perfectly fine with that.
I guess I'd ask the zoning board members. You're on the committee, right?
I am on the Ag and Zoning Committee, yes.
So, and he could maybe enlighten us with some of the discussion that happened there.
I got no problem.
I'm not opposed, but, you know, just let's, if we open it up for one, we'll open it up for others.
And here again, if you don't want me to speak, I will not.
Again, I'm not that opposed to it, but in the interest of time, I'm in no hurry. I mean, if someone else comes forward and wants to speak later, you know, before we actually close, we're gonna close an argument, I'm gonna let them know. So, yeah, if you wanna come forward and be sworn and provide testimony, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you prefer to be sworn or?
Sworn.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this case now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jason R. Bunting, 23485 North, 3100 East Road, Emmington, 60934.
Okay, and you're here on behalf of Ag and Zoning?
Ag and Zoning
Not
Committee, correct.
on behalf, okay.
As far as testimony, I don't have anything. I just want to answer some of the questions that you've got. You have asked what was the driving force to why we have picked these 7 townships. I am a representative from District 1 that them 7 townships belong to. I am representing the constituents of them 7 townships. I look back at that November 8th referendum and I see how that vote went down. I see the productivity level of the ground up in that area is less conducive to good crops, and it provides a good opportunity for a wind farm to be constructed. I look at the population of that area, and unlike the Pleasant Ridge, Fairbury, Forest, Chatsworth area, we're not as heavily populated, so the folks that we will affect are less. I'm not saying the people that we do affect are less important, but there's not as many people there. The grouping of the 7 townships together, and as you look at the wind farm jurisdictions of the 2 farms that are currently up there, we are closing the gap between them 2 farms. So when I made my decision and I made my vote in March to go this route and send this back as a text amendment to your wind ordinance, I thought that this was common ground for everybody. And that's why I voted the way I did.
Okay. Any questions from the zoning board?
Yeah, I just have one. Jason, do you have any land potentially affected by the wind turbines, or are you in a lease currently, or have been in the past, a lease with the wind companies or your immediate family to which you'd be potentially an heir?
Michael, I own 55 acres.
Okay,
That is not signed up.
okay,
I live next to Emmington. I did not want to do that to the town of Emmington. I did not want to be within that area. I chose personally to do it. To be completely and totally honest with you, as far as I know, nobody in my immediate family, my grandfather and my uncles and my father and my aunts have not signed up.
okay.
Well, I've got one question for you. So, when we went through this process less than a year ago,
Mhm.
and the revised document came back to the county board.
Yes.
Did you read through our reasoning? And did you, what were your thoughts at that time? Did you vote in favor of passing what we had?
I was under the understanding that the 3250 was what you guys thought as a ZBA was a common ground spot to be. What you decided to do with the UCLC and everything going on, I respect that. I don't know if I agreed with it, but I respect it. But I also thought, in the same token, in order for us to, as a county board, to tell the outside folks of our county that we are back open for business, that I was willing to go and get away from the wind farm moratorium, to open it back up to the 3250, but also in the same token, get a text amendment set up to send back in here to go through that process as well.
I guess I'm still just struggling with, the soil types were any different, economic situation was very different.
It's a combination of the 4 factors, Joan, is why I chose to send back my approval of this text amendment to you. And the 4 factors are the connecting of the 2 wind farms, the population of the area, the fact that the 7 townships are grouped together, and the results of the November 8th moratorium, or excuse me, referendum.
So the population being less dense, I think would then support, the larger setback would be less of one, for a wind farm to work with. I mean, they wouldn't, there's less population there, so you're not looking at as nearly as many primary residences to stay 3,250 feet away from.
But it deters the number of wind turbines that go up in the farm. You have to make it conceivable for them to be able to come in and do it.
According to,
The 3250. And that's the reason for the backing up to the 1640, excuse me. The reason for backing up to the 1640 is going to be able to group together.
right, you just have less targets to move around, is what I guess what I'm hearing everyone say, that the population's less dense. So if I'm a wind farm company, I have less targets to look at, work around, be concerned with. I have less people to go say, hey, do you care if I'm closer than 3250, but I'm further away than 1640? There's fewer people to deal with, so.
And there's also the signing off of the, you can also sign off, you can waive it as well.
Yeah,
Right.
right, that's what I'm saying, you can waive the 3250 and you can get it as close to 1640, the safety factor that the turbine manufacturers dictate.
You're using the word targets, what do you mean?
primary residences, so if I'm a wind farm company and I'm looking to site turbines, and I've gotta look for all the, things I've gotta work around, and a home where someone, it's their primary residence, I have to work around that, you know, if they look at it and just say, at passing glance, I've gotta be 3,250 feet away, you've got less homes where you have to be that far away.
That's true.
Less things to work around,
Don't
fewer
you-
people to contact to say, would you waive this?
That's all true, but don't you think that it would change the number of potential windmills in that area?
I think Mr. Bryant,
I don't know, that's why we're
Well,
like
somebody
saying
would.
that,
If you gotta have them 3,200 feet apart, rather than 1,600, there's gonna have to be less of them that you can put in any given area.
Unless they have a waiver.
exactly, and there's less homes already, what I'm hearing the testimonies, the people providing testimony say is that there's less dense population in that area. In those 7
That's true.
townships, right? So, when you come down to the southeast corner, there's higher population, there's a lot more primary residences to work around. Now I can see, it is harder to start placing without actually going to the folks that are there. I guess if I'm a wind farm company, I'm gonna go the same process, I'm gonna get the same process, whether the ordinance says 1640 or 3250. I'm gonna start talking to farmers, people that own the big chunks of ground, seeing who's interested in signing up. Doesn't matter what the setback is. See where I get with that. Then I start looking at, the folks that, I've gotta work around, this hole essentially, because I've gotta stay so far away. So I would think that with the less dense population, the 3250 protects the people that potentially could be harmed by them, or let's just be honest, don't want them. Don't want them. It protects them somewhat, because a good setback takes care of all of those, a lot of the smaller issues that people have brought up. There's fewer people to go ask if you want to waive it, and you have the opportunity to waive. And if the referendum said, hey, the majority of the folks support it, I would say the majority of the folks would then waive the 3250, and we're right where
We started
we'd be
from.
without amending anything and starting to change things, and then figuring out the reasons why behind it, and I'm just sort of strictly getting at, I thought we wrote a good document when the last pass around, and
I don't
just
think
wanna make
anybody is
sure-
denying the fact that you took great ownership in the 3250. I just thought, as a Ag and Zoning Committee, if we could take that document and improve it upon it, whether we talk about a hearing facilitator or allowing these 7 townships to come together for the 4 reasons that I chose in favor of sending this text amendment to you guys. I thought we weren't trying to fix something that, I think you guys think we're trying to fix something that you guys did. I think we saw the process through, and it took a lot of time, a lot of people's time we just thought we were gonna take this, listening to what they say through the referendum, listening to, as you look at these 2 wind farms, we're trying to combine them, we're trying to help taxing bodies, provide services for the constituents. We thought we were improving upon your guys' ordinance.
I don't look at it as someone thinking that you drafted anything bad, the Ag and Zoning drafted anything bad. I just wanted to be able to withstand the test of time. And that's why I felt like we had come up with, because since I've been on the zoning board, the members on it have always tried to find the happy medium, because we always have warring factions. Sometimes it's family members in here with, adjoining property, wanting to use it next to each other and can't get along. And we always try to find that happy medium, so that's what I thought, we found that happy medium. Protecting the people that could be harmed by it for health reasons, not safety, not flying parts, but health reasons. And then still with the waiver, and knowing the results of the referendum, that you could still get wind turbines in here. And we haven't heard from a company that they can't do it, and nobody's actually looked at it. So no, I'm not taking offense or anything to what you're saying or doing. I just want us all to look at it and go, okay, why are we doing it? If it's because of the soil type, Well, is it that every township that has this soil type, or, so let's say 60% of the soil in this township are the 3 that were listed?
Sure.
Should they all be included? So we're not coming back and doing this again in 6 months and now saying, well, the driving force was the soil types. So we're gonna look at every township that has it and make another change.
Yes, and in the results of the referendum that we received, when it come back, we saw that the 7 townships up in the northeastern part of Livingston County are open to the opportunity to have wind farms at 1640. So that, along with the other 3 factors, is why I, as a member of the Ag and Zoning Committee, voted to put this text amendment back to you guys to discuss.
Did you look at the results of the referendum very closely?
Did I look at it closely?
Yeah, like, do you have any idea the folks that were voted in favor, are they?
Are you saying the point spread between for and against? Is that what you're talking about, Joan?
Yeah, that, and then, in those areas, are those folks in a town? Are they out living in the country? I mean, how if, folks that are in the center of town, are they gonna be very impacted by them? Probably not. So, are they the ones voting in favor of it?
Or
They're
against
not gonna,
I don't know how.
against it, or
I haven't asked how people voted.
so we really don't know. You don't know who's willing to wait.
I know what the results of the referendum was, yes.
Okay, sorry, Jim.
No, that's no problem, but with that line of questioning, have you had much feedback from your constituents about either the referendum or the text amendment or any of this thing that they do want to change?
I would like to believe where I stand and the constituents that I represent would like to see some wind farm in that area.
But has anybody said that they can't?
Well, I have a bus driver that we agreed to disagree, and she understands where I'm coming from. As a property owner, I weigh the difference between how can I, for lack of a better term, get a bigger bang out of my buck,
Right.
but yet be polite to my neighbor that doesn't own any ground. It's a balancing act there that we're trying to do. I don't
And
want
that's what the
exactly,
board has done.
and that's why I just with the line of questioning in here, and I feel terrible for doing it because I did not testify beforehand, but I could not make all of these, and you were asking I think the same question, and I was just trying to find a way to answer your question the best I could.
Right, but have you had feedback from your constituents on this issue?
As I said before, we have both antis and pro-wind people.
Okay.
Living around one, I live 1.5 miles from one. I mean, I have my own opinion about them, but I listen to what other people have to say, and I understand where they're at. And if we come to an issue, whether it be wind farms or solar or anything else, if they choose not to re-elect me, the ballot box will determine that.
Okay.
Jason, do you know the wind farm that's nearest you? I guess I don't know exactly where you live, so I'm gonna talk about the Iberdrola wind farm. If that had been 3,200 feet instead of, I think at that time it was 1,200 feet, how many of those wind turbines would qualify under the 3,200 feet?
Without having exact knowledge, I would say probably half to a third of what are currently there.
Would you defer to anybody else out there?
I don't know. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent Bryant had explained the difference between a 1640 and a 3250, and I think he gave acreage differences, and what I think really hit home to me is a landowner with a 40 or an 80 would be less likely to have a wind turbine put on their farm than someone that owns a 160 or a 240, because once you take that 1640, you take it out to 3250, you're expanding out your acreage. And I think if Mr. Bryant wants to, on closing, he can explain that a little bit better.
Could I ask Chuck if he knows the answer to that? Is that appropriate?
Answer to what?
The number of wind turbines that would have
Oh,
been built, and if you roll it, if they had 3,200 feet instead of 1,200 feet, how many of those wind turbines, I think there's 155 of them there now, how many of them would there be if it was 3,200 feet?
Yeah, it would be considerably less, it'd probably be less, probably in the 10% range, 10 to 15% would be considerably less than that.
so you think that there were that many folks in that area that wouldn't waive?
I can't answer that question because we didn't have a waiver option at that particular time, so.
Well, considering that we have a waiver, do you think there's that much opposition?
I think the better question would be to ask, and you're correct, we haven't had a wind farm company come in and talk. Would a wind farm company even bother coming in to explore doing a wind farm that setback distance and having to seek that many waivers?
I don't think either one of you can answer that accurately.
I can, I mean, I'm not saying I can, yeah.
Have you had anyone in your district that you represent come to you and say anything negative about the wind turbines?
Yes, negative and positive both.
Okay. In terms of health? Did it bother them physically?
In terms of not in my backyard.
Yeah, okay, well that's, I don't want them, yeah. But in terms of health, you don't know?
No. I don't know of anybody that has moved out of our area because of the wind farm. I personally don't know of anybody that has moved, have picked up and moved their family because of the wind farm. And Joan, I will be completely honest, the 2 years of the construction of the current wind farm that is west of me was the 2 years that I wish they wouldn't have been here either. But once we got through the construction phase, I can say as a father and a husband that I don't see where the current wind farms have caused any health damages to my family.
Well, since you brought that up, why? Why during that construction phase did you wish they weren't there? What factors made you feel that way?
Road conditions. Just, you don't know, when I left my farm with the baler, I can get from point A to point B in 6 miles. During that construction phase, it could have taken me 15 miles to get to the spot.
Because roads were closed?
Yeah, because the moving of the heavy equipment and stuff. But once we got through the construction phase, and I truly believe that the current wind farm that we have now, they're good operators, and they're open to any suggestions or concerns that we have. But during the construction phase, there was some pain.
Jason, you said the closest turbine to you is 1.5 miles.
Currently, the closest one, Michael, from my place would be, I've got one west of me, I've got one north, that'd be further than 1.5 miles. 2 miles would be the closest one. We farm around 5 of them.
2 miles. That's 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a town in between us.
okay. And you've told us that you have no negative health effects that you are seeing between yourself, your wife, and your child at 10,000 feet.
And I also said I don't remember anybody moving or leaving because of the wind farm that is currently in operation west of us.
Have they abandoned any properties?
There are abandoned properties. I don't know if it happened before or after the wind farm.
So there are abandoned properties within a mile of a turbine? Within a half a mile of a turbine?
There are farmsteads that haven't had people in there since I've known it. Abandoned as in, like, picked up and left? There are houses that sit empty in our area, yes. But there are also houses that sit empty outside of the wind farm as well.
The proximity to the turbines, it sounds like there's more than one, so just pick two.
5 miles? I'm trying to think. 3 miles?
You don't feel that those were,
I just turned 41, and one of them have been abandoned for 20 years.
okay.
So farmsteads like that then are highly likely not to have primary residence at the time, you know, if one farm came in now and wanted to look at it.
I have no reason why, I don't know why them buildings are sitting empty.
But yeah, if they sat there for 20 years, I mean, your options are probably limited to knock it down and build new, and is there a lot of that going on?
No, yeah, I mean, he said 2, and it took me a little bit to even think of 2 that were sitting empty, so.
Okay.
I mean, the whole, our countryside is not full of abandoned houses, no.
In the Ag and Zoning Committee discussions, did you guys talk much about that, you know, health concerns, or how do you protect, I mean, you gotta remember there's an opposing side that
Mhm.
folks that don't want it,
Mhm.
whatever their reasons are.
Mhm.
But if their reason would turn out to be health, and or already is a health concern, it looks to me like the county has somewhat of a responsibility to help protect those folks too, in addition to protecting the folks that want more economic opportunity. I mean, I think that for the county, it's a balance.
It's a balancing act, that is correct. Just
So-
no different than how you folks sit here today.
Yeah, that's the hurdle I can't get over, and we've hashed this over at our last, text amendment
Mhm.
meetings, and thought we came.
I was at many of them.
A good document, and we haven't heard anything to refute that reason or the evidence presented there. We've gotten additional information that supports the economic side of things, which I guess maybe I just assume too much, but I always assume that's why we want them, otherwise what good are they? If they're not gonna make money, you don't build things if they don't make money. I mean, unless it's just a house to live in. So that's my struggle. How much of that did you guys talk about there?
I think, as
In Ag and Zoning?
our attorney had said, that, yeah, there was quite a bit of deliberation, yes. How much was health brought into it? I know it was discussed, I don't know how long of a time it was discussed, but as our attorney said, you can look back in the minutes and see the conversation. And like I said, I don't wanna keep going back to that, but
I wish there was a way to write this so you could put it at 1640, and then for the folks that could say, I have this health issue and this will impact me, someone that has seizures caused by, you know, the twirling blades, that then you could say, okay, that for this reason, then it has to be set back this many feet. We're not looking at it from that perspective, so we're kinda going at it from the opposite of. But
And it has-
Put a bigger protection in and then give everybody the opportunity to waive it, and if the support's there based on the referendum results, it seems like we hit the jackpot of happy mediums. But if you put it at 1640 and then you've got folks that are going to be harmed by it, what do we do for them?
As a father and a husband, I would not do anything to put my family in harm's way. Knowingly do anything to put my family in harm's way.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Any other young board members have questions? Units of local government, questions for Mr. Bunting? Interested party represented by an attorney? Interested party is not represented by an attorney. Okay, Mr. Colastic?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Mr. Bunting, just a little clarification, you said you were at District 1?
Excuse me, District 2, I'm
Okay.
sorry, District 2. I apologize.
Okay, and I am a constituent of your district.
You are most certainly. I know exactly where you live.
Everybody does. And one of the things you were talking about, and some of the questions were asked as far as how many people voted for it or not. And of course, White Township was one of the ones that did tend to go over the 50% mark. But as we're saying, we're trying to do, and the counselor here for the county was saying, what's good for the people, what percentage of the people would have to say yes to say this is a good idea? In other words, in your mind, what percentage of the people would you need to say would make it a mandate to change this?
I don't think we're looking for a mandate. We're looking for a text amendment to a current wind ordinance is what we're looking for. There's no mandates.
Okay, but yet the public, the majority of them voted against it in the county.
This is correct.
As a matter of fact, if you look at it, of registered voters, 38% voted no. If we look at the total population, only 22% voted no. And if you look at the yes, 29% voted yes on registered voters, only 18% of the total population voted for it. So that's why I'm wondering, because the lady at the front, and I'm not great with the names.
Joan Houston?
When you're saying, you know, the people that want this and don't want it. And that's, and I know what she's trying to say is, at what point do we say this is the will of the people? At what percentage do we say this is the will of the people and we need to change this? Okay, I guess, I know there's not a great, but it's one of those things that
Sure.
as a council, as a member of the board.
Sure.
And one quick clarification, you live near Emmington?
I am exactly 1
You
mile.
said- And at the beginning, I know Mike, I don't know his last name, I'm sorry, sir.
For now.
You were saying that, you said, he asked you a question about if you have any on your property, or, and you said you wouldn't put any on your property?
I did not sign the lease, no.
Okay. Okay. So, and as far as you know, no one's ever complained about any health effects, mental or physical?
To me, no.
And we're talking about property values. Would it be surprised if I said my property appears to have gone down $40,000 in 3 years? Do you think that a wind turbine within 1,600 feet would raise or lower my property value further?
I think there would be more determining factors on property value. In my opinion.
So which way do you think it would go? For people such as myself who have not enough to put one up, but yet would be directly impacted, and I'm already on a downslide of value.
You're not an appraiser.
I don't have an answer for that.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from parties not represented by an attorney? John?
Jason, you said you represent the constituents in your district.
District 2, yeah, I said 1, but I...
Well, but what about the people that only own a homestead, and Joe Blow owns 240 acres, he can have a windmill, how do you protect them, you know, if to keep it an equal distance away?
What do I think the equal distance is, John, or what are you asking?
Yeah, I mean, why isn't 3,000 feet or whatever it was, you know, why can't we give them the waiver if they want it closer or farther away and protect, you know, how do you protect them individuals within your district?
I think
They have no say-so in this, really.
that would be a conversation between the landowner and the property owner.
But
Just like I said, John, I did not sign R
And I
55 up because.
I agree with that, but and this has been coming up since the first windmill meeting ever. How do you protect the people that only got so many acres and really have no say-so how that windmill is got to? You know, and to me, all the testimony they had, there's not been one windmill company come here before this to say that 3,000 feet will not work.
I think, were you here from Mr. Bryant on why, did he explain the difference between the 1640 and the?
But he's not a windmill expert.
Sure.
I said there's not been one windmill expert that said it would. Where there is testimony that there's one that said it would work, it makes a bigger footprint. He did not say it cut down on the windmills, he said it made a bigger footprint.
Any other questions for interested parties not represented by an attorney? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions by zoning board members?
Sure, I have some. All right, we've talked a lot about population. Chuck, you've provided some comments related to population, and Mr. Redling Schaefer has indicated that you wouldn't present evidence or opinions based on any opinion-based statements. Have you provided us with population density calculations to work with? Nothing short of saying there's less people that live in those townships.
I provided you what I provided you with the population figures from the county clerk's office.
So you did not calculate the density.
I did not sit down and I did not provide that density to you. I think I did do it one time, but I didn't provide it to you.
Okay. So all the statements made about population have not been substantiated by any evidence. Nothing short of raw population data, which includes communities.
No, because the data I gave you the unincorporated area also, gave you the incorporated and unincorporated areas, so therefore you have the unincorporated areas giving you that data.
Okay. And you have indicated that the population in the unincorporated areas is in those 7 townships. In those 7 townships is less than any other townships within the county.
If you take the conglomerate of the townships, it's just, I'm not gonna say that you can't find 7 townships. I don't know if you're gonna find 7 contiguous ones, but those townships there, it's a factor, they are less denser than some of the other townships.
So you've included all 7 in your potential density calculation that we don't have.
Correct.
But without including all 7, that might not be the case.
I think we have to look at what specific factors you're looking for and how to put them together, so.
Okay. As we looked at election results, how did we not include the incorporated areas in the consensus of the election results?
That's not my office, that's the county clerk's office. The document that I saw did not break that down that way.
So the incorporated areas could vote for the unincorporated areas.
Throughout the entire county.
Right. Okay. Council, Mr. Riley Schaefer, is there any case law that would substantiate your desire to apply different zoning characteristics to different townships, placing those inhabitants at a greater risk for the loss of property value, negative health effects, and nuisances, including noise, population, and shadow flicker?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure I can. Are you aware of any case law that would substantiate your desire to apply different zoning characteristics to different townships, placing those inhabitants at a greater risk for the loss of property values, negative health effects, and nuisances, including noise pollution and shadow flicker?
So you're asking me for case law?
I'm asking you for any.
A case law on zoning in general, case law on wind farms in general. If you're gonna ask for a case that's on that very, 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 very specific issue, there's no case law. What we did with the Agricultural Zoning and Emergency Services Committee was come up with an opportunity to present to this very board the changes they wanted to present. And we felt, as council, we conveyed to them in open session that the way to do that would be through a text amendment ordinance. And that is why you have the application in front of you.
All right. Well, speaking to that text amendment, you are aware of the Attorney General's position on the text amendment?
Yes? I assume you mean the one that has been circulated in the past. I mean, there's presumably countless Attorney General opinions on zoning.
The one that was written specifically to our county, that did not actually, that did not make a definitive decision on this.
Okay.
So why have you chosen to go that route instead of the map amendment route?
In our position, the map amendment was not the legal process by which to do it. That was our advice to our client.
Based on
My legal ability and opinion.
case law?
When there's not case law, you have to make a legal opinion based on your opinion.
What are the providing factors that would we have to act accordingly within the realm of the law, and the Attorney General is saying we shouldn't do this.
That's a discussion you can have with your counsel. If you have a concern about the law, I advise my client you have your own lawyer.
All right. Question on the certification of publication. I see that it was published in the Daily Leader. It has been represented that the paper, the gentleman was here early on, represented nearly that whole, his paper circulated within that entire region. Why was it your advice to not circulate within the media that was published within the area that would be affected?
If you're getting to the notice, I defer to how notice is always handled. I don't understand your question.
All right, I'll defer to whomever can answer it.
I published it. They're always published in the Pontiac Daily Leader. It has to be a paper that's published countywide because the text amendment generally affects the county as a whole. And it was just general operating procedures.
I agree that a text amendment generally affects the county as a whole. However, this particular text amendment, you've chosen not to affect the county as a whole, but rather selected 7 townships in the northeastern part of the county to directly impact. And you've chosen not to circulate within that publishing area.
It's my understanding Chuck has said he followed general operating procedures, and I think he's answered the question.
Right. This is to Mr. Riley Schaefer again as well. You're obviously here to represent the county. You've had, I'm sure, multiple meetings over a long time frame to prepare yourself for this. Have any members of this zoning board of appeals been present at any meeting that you've had
Meetings, the agricultural and zoning committee?
pertaining to this process since you've been on retainer?
Well, first off, to the extent I have meetings with my client, it's protected privilege. I'm not gonna go into those meetings. If you're asking if I've seen any of these individuals at a meeting that's covered by privilege, no, but I'm not gonna comment anything about the meetings themselves.
Okay, and I would like the record to indicate that I'm not sure where to go with this. I mean, he simply just perjured himself because you've made a statement very early on that you did in fact have a meeting with him.
I've never met with you.
No, I told everyone on the record that I met with, Tom,
Okay,
the state's attorney, his name's Steve,
Randy.
yeah, Randy,
Okay.
Bob Young,
okay.
Chuck, who am I forgetting?
I think that's everybody that was there, and was at your request.
Yeah. and it
Right,
was
right,
a
right, and
request.
I understand that.
And it was to help
Okay,
try to lessen and educate both sides so that, to reduce a bit of the friction.
okay, all right, then let me apologize, on the record, let me apologize for that. I'm
Accepted.
But I do want to be clear that during this process, there have never been any members of this zoning board of appeals been there.
I'm not aware of any, no.
And at the time we met, Mike,
Right.
Mr. Robin Schaefer wasn't on board.
Got it, okay, okay,
If I remember correctly.
okay. All right. I'll just put this one out there. In your legal, professional, and ethical opinion, are sound zoning decisions based upon popularity or following the predetermined zoning process as defined by the local ordinance that considers the overall use of land, impacts on surrounding property, peoples, and entities?
I don't even actually know what you're asking. If you're asking for my legal opinions, I mean, you have counsel. I'm not gonna comment on
Okay, then I'll
legal.
just ask for your professional and ethical
Okay,
opinion.
or professional or ethical, it's a hypothetical, I can't even grasp based on the question. I don't, I'm not here to offer guesses.
All right, that's all right. Good on it. Can I ask a question of other,
Yeah, if they're here.
Oh,
This is
okay,
for-
okay.
This time is for zoning board members. If you have questions of anybody that's here that
Sure.
presented testimony, not just the county, if you need any clarification on testimony that's presenting.
Okay.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Bryant,
Yes.
I have a question for you. You presented several things, and there was a point in time when you actually turned around and were talking, and I was listening. You were talking to the audience, and you made a reference that you attend meetings with other superintendents.
Yes, I do. We have
Okay,
board meetings here in Pontiac for school organizations,
okay,
our vocational school and our special ed, and then I meet about once a month in Bloomington with the entire ROE 17.
okay, okay. Have you ever met with a gentleman by the name of Bill Mulvaney?
He's not a Livingston County superintendent, I know that.
Right.
I don't know everybody in the 4-county region, because there's like 50 of us.
Okay. So, No.
The name, I can't put a face with the name, no. Or a school.
Okay, all right. If I said Armstrong School, Armstrong Ellis, a little bit closer down by Champaign.
I know where the Armstrong district is, but they're not in our region.
Got it.
They go to the Champaign Ford ROE area.
Right, right. So you wouldn't happen across him by any way, shape, okay. All right. Okay. It's all right. All right.
Anybody have any other questions? Or any testimony? It's 8:20, why don't we take a 10-minute break? If Mike, you want, will I give you a few minutes to go over the
That's
notes?
fine, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Let's take a 10-minute break. Just understand, we'll be looking at notes, might have more questions, and we'll come back here at 8:35. We'll do 13. All right, one last call for questions from zoning board members. Looks like we're good with questions. So, at this point in time, then we're gonna move on to closing statements to be made by anyone that presented testimony.
Okay, you must have testified to make a closing statement, and if you're represented by an attorney, the attorney will make the closing statement for you. You cannot introduce new information in the closing arguments. Anybody have any questions?
Maybe tell them the order that we go in.
Okay.
So,
We're gonna go with the applicant first, followed by school district, followed by people represented by attorneys, and then people not represented by attorneys.
And the folks not represented by an attorney, we're just gonna go in the order that we had you listed as when you spoke.
Right, and that would be Tom Pulaski, Will Gerber, anything Kalajic, am I pronouncing that right? Legis, I'm sorry. And Judy Campbell.
It's okay, I got it.
John Slagle.
Mr. Lucahan, float the room.
Oh, yeah.
So before you start.
Duff
Mr.
is still
Rutledge,
here.
Let's find in, you know,
I respect that.
okay.
He's coming.
Okay, Mr. Rutledge, Chair.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. I want to thank you. I want to thank the members of the ZBA. I know many hours went into this. I don't lose sight of that. And certainly the professionalism I appreciate. All I'm here to say, in addition to what I really kind of testified to tonight, really addressed the issue. You have a county that provided you with an application. That application was based on its own thorough analysis, utilizing a foundation that you all provided. And you've heard testimony as well just tonight about how at no point was it ever to be deemed a slight. And after hours of their own deliberation, they've prepared what they believe are text amendments that are in the best interests of the county. And we've provided our evidence and our testimony. We thank you for the opportunity to do so. And we conclude with basically the fact that there's always going to be a process in place that allows not only those here in attendance, whom I also thank, but wind farm companies that opportunity to present the application. So anything that we decide tonight, there's still the second portion of this, that assuming an application comes in, it still has to go through all the procedures. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, we've got units of local government, or school district, so Mr. Bryan.
I would first of all echo what council has said about the amount of hours put in and the amount of work put in by everybody on this. As somebody who attends a lot of night meetings myself, I know the burden that this group has taken on, and it's not a light burden. You give up a lot of time and family time and free time, and your efforts are appreciated. I also will not, add really anything, of course, not adding anything new, but, one of my premises was the economic impact for the school district. I said in my presentation that, we're not a wealthy school district. We've not had a lot of economic growth in our school district since I've been here over 5 years. This is an opportunity for economic growth and to be able to provide the funds for education for the kids in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lucahan?
First of all, thank you for your time. You guys have put up with way too many hours of me talking and staring at my sad ass, you know what. But face of it. But really, I just really want to thank you for your time. And UCLC, I've already kind of given UCLC statement and have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Classic? Mr. Classic?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Just recapping once again a little bit of what I said, I'm still looking at it from a emergency and safety point of view. I don't think all those facts are correct. I'd like to bring attention though to some other items that were entered into evidence early on in the proceedings. Mr. Shute, a lot of emphasis was made by one of the Zoning Board of Appeals members on dates in weighing evidence that if things were a little out of date. The Illinois Annual Average Wind Speed document that was presented has no dates on it. There's no time frame on when this was done, how it was done, how many points of collection, how many times that data was collected. So I would ask the board weigh that article as the board was questioning dates on other items that were entered. Livingston County Watershed and Rivers, that's from 2010. I believe that was item 5. Item 6 was Livingston County landfill expansion hydraulic hydrolog report. That was from 2002. So once again, a lot of things have been added that are out of date. Some may have changed, some may have not, but since other items that were put in there were highly questioned on the dates, I'm asking the board also take a look at that. And I would ask that the board, everything's hinging on dollars. That's all I've heard, really, is it's an economic thing. The schools, I get it. Like I said, I'm losing property value right now. You put one of these things up to me, I will be the one that leaves the county. And the health problem that you cannot take into effect is a psychological one. There is no study for it. There's nothing. And what does that impact on those people that now have to leave or sell at a loss? And this is not for today. You folks have to think 30, 40 years down the road. And it's not an easy thing for people to plan that far out. No offense to our board members here, but politicians are terrible at it. We live in the moment. And living in the moment has gotten us where we are today in our state, and it's going to cause us problems down the future locally. While this is a boom today, it can be a bust 20 years from now when these things are at the end of life, when they come down, when there's no more government subsidies. What's going to happen to everything? How are you going to survive? Your children who are left behind to survive economically. Please take those things into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gerber is not here. Ms. Collegius?
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Ms. Campbell? Not present. Mr. Slagle?
Good.
Mr. Bitsum?
I'm fine, thanks.
Mr. Bunting?
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay, with that, we can close this hearing. I think we'll make a motion, and then we can begin our discussion.
So moved. Close.
Second.
Okay, so just to be clear, we always motion in the positive.
Okay,
Okay, just,
thank you.
alright. Okay. So with that, there's obviously items I'd like to discuss with the board and where we're gonna go with this. So, pardon me? Pardon me? We start with, we put the motion out there, and then begin our discussion, and then we'll just recess the meeting. But we close the hearing portion of it with a motion.
Okay.
At least that's what we've done in the past.
Okay.
Because that's when we begin our discussion and no more input from
So was the motion just for him, just to close the session, or was that to approve? What was the exact motion?
right. I guess we're not at the point, unless you guys want to recess and we'll come back and do the motion later. I mean, if that's what you're understanding me to say and that's what you want to do, we can do that.
I'd just close it now, and as he points out that, it's in the motions to approve the,
What's the case number?
ZT3-17.
thank you.
Recommend to approve
The text amendment, right?
case number.
Livingston County zoning case.
Yeah, whatever, the number.
Okay. And then James seconded it.
Is that still your second?
Yeah. That way we can get on to deliberation, right?
Right.
Correct.
Then we can begin discussing all the issues that we have to discuss. At which point in time I'd say it's 10 till 9, and we have a lot to discuss, plus one other issue, that we need to review the minutes. You know, to just take that issue of who's preparing the minutes and how they're going to be reviewed. We should review the minutes before we finish our deliberations. So,
But that's after you vote, right?
No. It's closed, the meeting's
yeah,
closed.
We didn't
it's
vote.
closed.
We didn't vote, but there's a motion on the table.
Yeah.
There's discussion,
Now there's discussion, but we gotta sort through the minutes.
We've
And
got to
then
sort
we-
through the minutes, that's right. So, we need the minutes.
So are the minutes available for us to review at this time?
Yeah, a couple weeks away. If I'm doing there, a couple weeks away.
Couple weeks away.
Chuck, I think you said the only ones you have done are the June 8th.
Yeah, if you want a complete set, then maybe a couple weeks.
Well, we'd have to have a complete set.
Yeah, up through this hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you want anything else besides minutes. Do you want transcripts, or my suggestion, rather, the Ambroses have everything on tape.
I've watched it. I've watched the previous hearings that I missed,
Okay.
I mean,
and
if you want transcripts,
pretty good.
fine. Yeah, if you want
Transcripts of what are you referring to?
the meetings,
Of this
yeah.
hearing?
We've had 6 meetings,
Right.
okay? What I'm saying is, he's gonna do the minutes, okay? But do you want transcripts also? There was some discussion about that possibly, and my suggestion, rather than do transcripts, that you've got access to the tapes and you can watch. And it's particularly, I think it's better that way, because then you can watch the ones you want. If you don't want the whole thing, you can say, oh, I'd like to see such and such, Jeff Bryan.
Fast forward.
Yeah, fast forward and there you go. I mean, it's all available already out there. We don't really need to do transcripts.
Transcripts are expensive.
We just need Chuck to do the minutes.
Right.
If we have any issues of clarification, then I would say then we go back to the tapes. But if we don't have any issues, then we don't even have to go back to the tapes. But we just need to review.
So after we can get the minutes prepared, so in 2 weeks, is there a way we can do this by email so the members have it prior to our meeting?
Those of you with email, I'll get them out to you prior to the meeting.
Well, remember when we discussed this, because the issue came up of, Chuck being the zoning administrator, also providing testimony, and being the one to draft the minutes, in order to remove any potential bias that could be put in the minutes, or that, anyone could look at and see, or if there's, I don't wanna use the word conflict, but I don't know, at this late hour, I don't know what other word to use. That makes the onus on all of us to review what Chuck drafts and make sure that they're not biased in any way, or facts aren't left out, or
They can always be
anything
amended.
like that. Right, so we usually review those, I just wanna make it part of our deliberation, and that we're clear on
But
what
what
Chuck's drafted.
what I'm asking is that we have those prior to our deliberation,
Right.
so that we don't have to sit through and read them,
Yes.
take up time.
We can, yeah, he needs a couple of weeks
Right,
to produce them, and then you need some time to review them.
right.
Yeah, and then if we need any clarification, then I would suggest, because I had suggested earlier that we review them in here in detail so that people know and see what we do and see that we actually did read through them and spent the time going through them to remove any
But
cloud
we
of
all will
conflict.
have time to have looked at them, and then we can discuss if there's any
Mhm.
issues with them
Mhm.
in the public
Right.
meeting. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
so-
know, I don't wanna pin Chuck down to, you know, if he takes to the 12th, 11th hour to get these to us, and then we have to look at them in here,
Well-
you know.
Well,
Let's
what
be
I'm
fair to Chuck, that's a big job.
I mean, let's set a date, and then set a date when I'll get them out to you. I mean, we'll give you some time to look at it. We can reset a meeting date as to when you meet again to look at them, and a date, and I should have them up to you.
Your next regular meeting is November 9th, I think, isn't it? Is that correct?
Second Thursday. Mr. Rainey has a Mr. Rainey would probably have a conflict with that meeting, because your village meeting.
Oh, okay.
Crowded is Mr. Ziegenholm, which is your review special use for the campground.
Okay.
He's asked to have that moved up to November, because it's going back to Arizona to be on the December calendar. If you want to move it back to December, then it's ready there. And I'm not sure how long it will take you to review that, so.
So that's the only thing, only item?
We have the cemetery issue that we had previously tabled. I believe there's a November potential review on that, and I have another potential case that's out there that could probably be delayed.
Do you know if they're supposed to get a state permit or something? Did they do that?
I know they applied for it, I don't know if they got it or not.
Okay. So those two items.
For sure.
I guess November 9th, okay, kind of hinges on, is that gonna give you enough time? It's October 5th, you need a couple of weeks, I mean, 3 probably really to be getting done.
Yeah, Mr. Rainey, it's kind of angry on the 9th though, so you have to kind of,
Well, we can set another meeting date, not that I'm not trying to pull us back to Pontiac for meeting after meeting, but there is that option.
Yeah, about November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Did I give you enough time, Chuck?
yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with it being the 9th, if you'll have time to review the minutes.
The ninth?
Well, if you have time to review the minutes, Chuck will have them out, if we give you 3 weeks, then
You mean the
that's the
second?
26th.
You mean the second, don't you? He's got the meeting on November 9th.
Right, if you can't be here for that meeting, to avoid adding another night where we all have to come over to Pontiac. If we did it on November 9th, but you've had time to look at the minutes, I don't know if we're gonna finish deliberations in one night, or if you're adamant you wanna be here, then we'll set a different day. You wanna be here? All right, then we pick a different date. Okay. So does November 2nd, or push it back another week to the, you're just looking at Thursdays, I don't know why.
November 16th.
That'd be county board is on the 16th.
15th.
Wednesday's the if you want to do it.
November 2nd is 4 weeks away, so that would be plenty of time.
Could you have the minutes done so there's at least, what, 5 days before the second?
I'll try to have them done by the end of the day on the 27th. How about that?
October 27th? And then do the meeting on November 2nd? Okay.
I mean, that doesn't get, I'm gonna be gone that last weekend of October, so I won't be reviewing minutes on that.
There's a potential conflict on November 2nd. So can you go the day before? We have something in the evening
Okay.
that particular day for the GLCDC.
That's a Friday.
Oh, okay. The 6th?
6 on Monday.
November 6th. And then Chuck, could you have him, what's on November 1st? Chuck had him out on November 1st for a meeting on the 6th.
I'd still like them on the 27th if you could, even if we move the date to the 6th.
Okay. Is that possible, Chuck?
Sure, we'll make it possible.
I mean, if you're late a day or so, that's not gonna make that much difference, right?
And if we finish up reading them in here, that's not the end of the world.
You can get what's available on the 27th, and then if I get them off, then you can get that a couple days later.
So November 6th.
This is November 6th, let's do it. So how's your favorite coming right? Should we come by then?
No clue.
Yes, no, maybe? All we
It's I got the date open, so.
Mike says this, a Monday night works for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
What date did you come up with?
November 6th, it's a Monday. I prefer 7:30, I have stuff going on Mondays, it helps me.
You want 7:30?
7:30 would be better for me.
November 6th,
Yes,
we have a property meeting.
What?
The property committee meets here on,
yeah, but
Be
on
be done by
the 6 o'clock.
7:30.
pardon?
We'll be done by 7:30,
Okay,
maybe.
hopefully we're done.
What about RPC, Chuck?
7:30.
I'll just cancel that, remove it. I understand they have that. I was well aware of that.
Okay. You just, one meeting's only all you've set up?
At this point, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, whatever we don't finish, maybe we, Richard's gonna wanna be here, so the 9th will not be an option for us, we'll have to set another date.
We also need to make sure we have the availability, the links to the videos.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, can we get that?
Have you been watching the videos?
I've already had it.
You have been.
Yeah.
But can we get the links in here?
We need to send them on the,
He wants to look at.
Oh, you
it
want them
advance.
at the, okay.
well, then isn't that what we were supposed to do?
Yeah, that's.
If you need it, yeah, then go to the.
Right. And we can look in here, can we projector? Yeah. I mean,
Be more efficient if you just do it in your own venue.
sure.
Yeah, or have the ability to do it both, so if we have an issue and we have to bring it in here to discuss it, if there's anything we need to clarify, then we've got the tools to do it. Is that,
Chuck,
are you able to?
you can get the link and get it to everybody, right?
You give them, get out.
John. Defer.
The first meeting is not public. We do not make that in public.
Okay. Well, you're making the minutes off of the tapes, the recorded tapes, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So the recordings would be available for the first meeting.
Right. Sure. Do you want that transcribed? since it won't be, I guess I didn't realize that it wasn't available, so,
The cost of that's, you mean the very first one that we did nothing?
yeah, well, I'm not gonna characterize. I was gonna say, that I wasn't the first one either.
Remember, the
We
whole
do have-
purpose of us reviewing these minutes is to remove any shroud of conflict.
Talk
So
to him.
Chuck is
No,
making
I'm
the
just-
minutes off of the tapes, and anybody has any concerns about the summarization Chuck makes of the tapes, we have access to those, we also have access to the video, because Lieutenant Rose is gonna let us have access to that, it's out on the web. So, it's all just to clarify if we have issues with how Chuck summarizes drafts the minutes in the first place.
If we only have to do once, you know, I'm just trying to think ahead so we can have the whole package at the same time.
I'd say we have to go back to the first video, we'll do that if it's necessary, but no need to make it public, just leave it the way it is for now. Chuck's not using those to make the minutes anyway, so he's using the tapes, the recorded tapes.
If I may say, if you provide us, if anybody has questions about specific sections of what happened on a particular night, I'm sure that we can get those ready for you instead of you having to go through the whole hearing on a particular night.
Yeah.
So if you advise myself or John ahead of time through Tom or whomever, we can try and get that as ready for you as possible ahead of time, so you're not wasting your time trying to skim and find stuff.
Okay.
To the extent we can, we definitely will do that for you.
Thank you. Okay, so minutes are gonna be as prepared as it can be by October 27th, sent out to all of us via email. Our meeting's gonna be November 6th, Monday night at 7:30 here. So we're gonna recess from tonight to November 6th at 7:30. We don't have another date. If we need to continue on, if we don't conclude on that Monday, then we'll just pick another date.
You're gonna have to have another day, because whatever we have a discussion, there's gonna have to be a formal recommendation, findings of fact and recommendation prepared.
Okay.
So we'll have to have a second one.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
And how long will it take to prepare that? Or do you want us to set that the next date at our November 6th meeting?
It's hard to say, depends on the outcome of the discussion.
That's why I'm thinking we just wait till November 6th to see what date we set then.
Okay.
We'll all know our calendars better by then.
Are we still on for November the 9th regular?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that
Sounds like you
no
got
reason to push me back.
everything in you got.
Okay, so with that, we, motion to recess. Need a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.